towards the end of the film, we get to have Jodie do this big monologue at the homecoming dance about being tall and, you know, accepting herself, which is like cool and all, but I kept thinking, who cares? Hey guys, it's Kristen, and today we're talking about Netflix's new movie, Tall Girl. Starring Ava Michelle, Sabrina Carpenter, Griffin Gluck, and Luke Eisner. We follow a high school student who is struggling to accept herself for who she is. She is very tall and the kids in her school are constantly making fun of her for it.
How's the weather up there?
Nice sweatpants, Sasquatch.
But when a new handsome foreign exchange student comes to school who also happens to be pretty tall, she becomes part of a love triangle and realizes that she's way more than her insecurities about her height have made her believe. Consider subscribing if you like this video and drop down in the comments and let me know your thoughts on Tall Girl. Now I want to start off by saying that I feel like we actually had a really talented young cast in this film, and there were a lot of other really fun, surprising actors that kind of popped in that you weren't expecting, like Angela Kinsey from The Office playing Jodie's mom. I also think that there were a lot of really great relationships in this movie that kind of surprised me a little bit, like the relationship between Jodie and her really beautiful pageant queen sister Harper. They actually had a really loving relationship, and they didn't have that kind of sibling rivalry that you would expect in a movie like this. Or the relationship that Jodie has with her parents, who I think can be really embarrassing but also are really well-meaning, especially with her dad. He really cares about her and just wants her to know that he's there for her. They just don't really know how to navigate having like a really tall daughter. On the other side of that though, I do think that they kind of wasted an opportunity between Jodie and her best friend Farida. She did a great job as an actress. It was just disappointing that her main focus as a character was really to just be the stereotypical black best friend cheering on the white main character.
One day, Jodie, you're gonna stand up and say, I love all 73 inches of myself.
I think they could have done a lot more with her. It kind of reminded me of Sierra Burgess is a Loser in that way, where they just really wasted the opportunity of this very talented actor who is playing the best friend by just having them kind of only be supporting the main character and having no other role outside of that. Something that I also kind of found really interesting and refreshing was being able to see Stigs' perspective throughout this movie, because I think a lot of times we're following our main character and we just kind of get their impressions of what's going on, but for Stig, we get to see that, you know, back in his country in Sweden, he's not the cool popular guy. He is the Dunkleman of Sweden, and he wants a chance now that he's in America and people are, you know, looking at him differently to be that cool popular guy. And you see kind of the struggle that he's dealing with in like terms of, you know, he's a nice guy, but he's making these decisions because he thinks this is his chance to be popular and cool. I think the way they handled it was really interesting, but it kind of also felt a little bit of left field when we see Stig say all these like really mean things about Jodie. I was like, oh, I mean, he always wanted to be kind of like the popular guy, but he never was mean, and this was the first time we got to see him be mean, and then after that you don't really get a redemption arc for him. It just kind of is like Jodie moves on. When it comes to Dunkleman, I kind of went back and forth a little bit about his character. I think over time you really start to like him and root for him, especially when you start to see him with Liz. I started to feel torn then because I really liked them together, and the fact that he was still pining after Jodie just didn't really make sense to me when he had someone that would be a really great match for him. He like tells us all these things that he loves about Jodie, but we don't actually get to necessarily see all of those things in her. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. Although I will admit, as cheesy as it was pretty cute to see why he actually carried that crate with him all the time. And then in terms of the story itself, you know, we're following this girl who is very insecure about being tall, and I do think that that is a valid like story to follow. I completely can understand like feeling insecure in your body, whether you're tall or short or larger or smaller, or your sexuality and different things like that. And I do think like this is a story that warrants being told, but I think that the way it was told maybe took itself a little bit too seriously, to the point where towards the end of the film we get to have Jodie do this big monologue at the homecoming dance about being tall and, you know, accepting herself, which is like cool and all, but I kept thinking, who cares? The whole speech, it just felt overdone and too blown up out of proportion and unnecessary. I was also a little bit mixed about the situation of how Jodie kind of overcame her insecurities about being tall, because in some aspects it felt like she was doing all of this all for a guy's attention, which to me kind of is just like, ugh, like, don't you just want to shake her and be like, come on, do this because you care about yourself and you love yourself and you want to be happier, not because you want some guy's attention. But on the other side of things, I did like the way that they kind of tackled Jodie's makeover. It wasn't something that they just like snapped your fingers and all of a sudden she's a beauty queen. It was very gradual, it was more natural, it was more, oh okay, she's wearing lipstick, or she has her hair down instead of in a ponytail, or she decides she's gonna wear, you know, heels for the first time. Or in one of the more original twists, you know, instead of seeing her in like cute dresses and, you know, being very girly and something that she's not, she comes to her homecoming dance in this really rad like turquoise suit and is feeling herself in her own style. So moments like that I think really shined in this film. This is also just one of those movies that I hate when the main character kind of ditches her friends to try to be with the popular crew, and we sort of see her do that a little bit with Farida when she gets invited to go to this escape room and she's like kissing this guy who bullied her like most of her life. It's just like, why would you want to be in a situation like that? Overall, I would say that Tall Girl was it was a cute film. I understood the message. I don't think they 100% landed where they needed to in terms of the execution, but I do think that I could like see where they were trying to go. At some points it did feel a little bit overdramatic or unnecessary. Really where the weaknesses lied were in taking the idea of being tall a little bit too seriously at times, kind of making it seem like that's like the height, pun intended, of like high school issues, when really there's like so much more going on. But I could understand where this story was coming from, and I think that that is an insecurity for people. Tall people will definitely relate to this story, especially tall women. Would I recommend this movie? I mean, I definitely think that it was better than The Kissing Booth and Sierra Burgess is a Loser. It wasn't quite on the level of To All the Boys I Loved Before. I don't think this is a film you watch 20 times and you're like, oh my god, I love it. But I did think it was fun and definitely at least worth a watch. If you like this video, you can check out more of my Netflix reviews right over here. Make sure to drop them in the comments and let me know your thoughts. Alright? See ya!